In the next 6 minutes, we're going to tell you exactly which stereo equipment to buy and how to save lots of money and still have the best sounding hi-fi system possible. And you should also stay tuned because then we're going to have some land in Florida that you can buy sight unseen. Getting straight answers about sound equipment is like trying to nail a handful of cooking oil to a wall. And you can easily get buried in a mountain of specifications. Most of the specifications are meaningless, even to the manufacturers that publish them. Can you predict how a speaker will sound by reading about the weight of its magnet? If you can, or if you're the kind of person that has a $7,000 preamp, please go see what's on the other channels. There are enough scientific terms and $10 words thrown around in your average audio magazine to sink a ship. Now, there are enough esoteric scientific principles at work in sound reproduction to make an entire Acme school of hi-fi. So stay tuned for a couple of years, and we'll just consider this lesson 1 of 42. One of the terms that you have to understand about audio is the decibel. The decibel is named after 1/10 of Alexander Graham Bell, the original sound pioneer. The decibel is a measure of the apparent loudness of a sound to our ears, sort of a sonic quart. The problem with relating decibels to anything is that decibels relate to our hearing, and our hearing isn't linear. Let's say that a tree falling in the forest makes a noise of 80 decibels. So a tree falling that was twice as big might wobble the air twice as hard, but it will weigh in at only 86 decibels. To double the sound intensity is to raise it 6 dB. To cut it in half is to lower it 6 dB. The decibel is logarithmic, just like our ear's response. Now, when I say 6 dB, I'm talking in electrical terms, which, strictly speaking, you can't when you say dB. Decibels should really only be reserved for sound pressure levels, but that doesn't stop everybody else from bandying it about. The electronic implications of this 6 dB thing are nasty. This is a decibel meter. I'm going to adjust the volume of a tone by 6 dB, up and then down. Listen. To reproduce that apparently minor change in volume, the electrical levels had to half and then double. Now, there's a wide variation in speaker efficiency. That means that a more efficient speaker can use a smaller powered amplifier to drive it. There's a bonus. If a small amplifier is driving an efficient speaker at, say, 2 watts at normal listening, it will require 4 watts to raise its output by that mere 6 dB. A large amplifier driving an inefficient speaker might be throwing 10 watts into that speaker to achieve the same volume level in the room. Then the 6 dB rise will require an output of twice 10 or 20 watts. But don't get lost in a sea of decibels and logarithms. If I continued this example ad nauseum, I could probably prove that the smaller wattage system with efficient speakers would have better response to things like cymbal crashes. The important thing to remember is that more wattage is not necessarily better. You will have to enter the wattage race, though, if you only have room for small speakers, because they're the classic power hogs. To get a lot of acoustic energy out of a very small speaker at low frequencies involves throwing a lot of power at the problem. On the other hand, don't turn up your nose at a large speaker that claims to only withstand 20 watts of power. There's a chance that it's a very good speaker, capable of rattling the roof with only 10 watts of music. Your classic movie theater of the 50s and 60s used a 10-watt system. Whatever the system you choose, you should know that the specifications of the amplifier are stated into a load resistor, not a speaker. Speakers have a lot of, well, let's call it personality. This is a moderately good speaker. The primary reason that I choose it for this demonstration is that it fits on the table. The size is also the primary reason that I own 4 of them, even though they require a lot of power. I'm going to feed it a square wave. Now, square waves are an interesting audio test pattern because to reproduce them requires very good frequency response. Anything that doesn't look like a square wave is bad response. Now, the lower trace on the scope is what the amplifier is feeding the speaker, and the upper is what the speaker is doing acoustically as seen by this microphone. Not too faithful. Notice that its response changes as I change the location of the microphone. The high frequencies are more directional than the low ones. Some speaker systems fight this by using more than one tweeter, and some use very expensive tweeters that radiate high frequencies in a wider pattern, but most simply include a sheet of paper that tells you to put the speakers so that the tweeters are at your ear level. No one ever reads that sheet of paper. So you can affect your whole super whiz-bang system by simply putting the speakers in the wrong place. You can also affect it by having the wrong drapes or furniture or the wrong amount of friends in the room. The hi-fi salesman will try to sell you a graphic equalizer. These are okay, and they're a lot of fun to play with, but without the proper test equipment, using a graphic equalizer to fix the sound of a system is sort of like buying the wrong color car and painting it yourself with a brush. It works, but this is probably something you won't need. There's been a considerable trend towards the use of huge speaker wire. This seems mostly to be an overreaction to the truly wimpy stuff they used to hand out for free with the speakers. It had considerable resistance and could eat up to 10% of the amplifier's power by heating slightly. Up to a distance of 50 feet, ordinary lamp cord is absolutely fine. Now you don't have to trust me on this. Notice that the only people who will recommend bigger wire either sell it or have just bought it. If you're considering an investment in sound, you should stick around for the other 41 items that we're going to do someday. If you're shopping today for a new system, don't be afraid to trust your heart and your ears. Just don't buy something based on a specification that you don't understand. And believe me, there are going to be plenty of them. Oh yeah, make sure it has a warranty.
What a great start. It says here, never push on this. What do they know?
Everybody loves the fire department. They modestly suggest that it's because they don't give out parking tickets. Saving lives and protecting property might also have something to do with it. With the bewildering array of building styles, synthetic building materials, dangerous industrial chemicals, bulk storage sites of flammable materials, and densely packed dwellings, firefighting in the big city has gotten pretty scientific. A call to the Toronto Fire Department starts here, at Communications.
Toronto Fire Department, Kenny speaking.
Upper 11 in the station. Right, upper 11.
Their database has an entry for every single address in Toronto.
So he's trapped there?
Simply entering the street address into the computer-aided dispatch system provides the following information: the type of building it is, if there are known residents with special problems, invalids or handicapped people, if hazardous materials are stored on the site, and the nearest intersection.
Fire alarms are going off there, sir? Or?
The screen will also provide the dispatcher with exactly which apparatus will respond to the scene for each type of emergency. If the nearest available fire trucks are out responding to another call, the computer will automatically select the next closest available equipment.
Pumper 24, respond to number 230 St. Clair Avenue West. The Timothy
The computer is aware of the status board and knows which apparatus to send, no matter how busy it gets. It even provides directions for trucks to fill in at empty stations to ensure that all areas of the city remain covered. The approximate response time from phone call to arrival is 3 minutes anywhere in the city. They often get there sooner. The fire call will arrive at a local fire station on a printer like this one, complete with all the information from the database at Communications. As well, each fire station makes it their business to know their neighborhood and what's stored there. The system is backed up by an identical secondary system, 6 dedicated radio frequencies, and if all else fails, the department telephone. We didn't want to interfere with a real fire, so we visited the Toronto Fire Department Training Division. These are new recruits being trained. The basic fire call, or normal response, results in the arrival of 2 pumpers, 1 aerial truck, and 1 district chief. The pumpers arrive with basic first aid equipment, including oxygen resuscitators, 2,300 liters of water, and all the hoses. The aerial truck carries ladders, tarps, and plastic for property protection, electric generators and lights, large fans to exhaust smoke, and a first-class set of burglar tools. Other equipment in the optional rescue truck include auto extrication tools and a variety of hazardous materials, protective entry suits, and equipment. By the time the fire department's been called to a scene, there's often a serious threat to life or property. This is no time to call a meeting and gather everybody's opinion, so a prearranged chain of command is followed. The captain of the first truck to arrive makes a quick assessment of the situation and sets a plan in motion. When the district chief arrives, a follow-up assessment is made. The assessments will take into account the type of building, the location and extent of fire spread, its occupancy, any hazardous materials at the location or near it, the wind direction, and weather conditions. The most prominent weapon used against fire is water, but not for the reasons you'd simply expect. To sustain a fire requires fuel, heat, oxygen, and a chemical chain reaction. A fire can be extinguished by removing any one of those 4 factors. Heat is often the agent that creates combustible gases, and heat can also spread the fire by conduction, radiation, and convection. Water's primary use is in cooling a fire. When water undergoes a change of state and turns to steam, it absorbs almost 1,000 times as much heat as it takes to raise the same volume of water 1 degree Celsius. Firefighters use this steam trick wherever they can. Often, simply spraying a room with a fog nozzle will create enough heat-robbing steam to quench a fire automatically. The oxygen to sustain combustion usually comes from the air. In all enclosed heated spaces, there's a chimney effect. Heated, less dense air rises, finding its way out of the top of the enclosure and drawing in more air at the bottom. This has a few ramifications, especially in taller buildings, where improper ventilation could contribute to fire spread. When available oxygen begins to be depleted, the fire may settle down and eventually extinguish itself. However, opening a door or window below or at the level of the fire can feed the fire and even cause an instant explosion. Ventilating a structure above the level of a fire will allow more air to escape, helping to remove heated toxic gases or blinding smoke from the area. This is a Watrous pumper. When the pumper arrives on the scene, it already contains 2,300 liters of water. This is about 3 minutes worth at your average fire scene, if there is such a thing. The reservoir allows pumping to begin immediately, while a secondary source of water is obtained. Normally, this is the nearest fire hydrant. In a pinch, the pump can get its water from a lake or a swimming pool if it can get close enough. The large black hoses on the side of the pumper are for that purpose. The pump is actually 2 pumps. A common shaft drives 2 centrifugal pump impellers. The 2 pumps can operate in parallel, or 1 pump can feed the other in series. This will depend on how much pressure is required, the size and number of the hoses in use, and the volume of water desired. Each hose outlet has its own pressure gauge. Operating the pumper effectively is an art in itself. Not only is there an optimum flow and pressure to maintain, but the pump operator has to accomplish this without using more water than the hydrant is supplying. If you want to know what it's like to enter a burning building, close your eyes and stick your fingers in your ears. Get a rubber suit and wear it on the hottest day of the year. Firefighting is anything but comfortable. Not only does smoke completely obscure your vision, but toxic fumes from modern materials, upholstery, paint, and you name it, make the 9-kilogram breathing apparatus a fashion necessity. About halfway through this item, I decided that maybe I didn't want to be a firefighter anymore. It's hard, dangerous work. On the other hand, they all had a pretty good sense of humor, and there are all those neat trucks they get to ride around on. Maybe they'll just let me ride around on the truck. Some pieces of technology exhibit amazing growth. Not too long ago, there were no cellular phones. Today, well, let's not beat a dead horse. In a way, there's really nothing new in the cellular phone system. The various technologies involved have been known for a long time. Cellular phones are really just sophisticated walkie-talkies. There's just one quirk to reliable radio communication in most cities: buildings. The average cityscape makes radio communications nigh on to impossible. Tall buildings alternately block and reflect radio waves. To radio, the city's like a giant pinball game. Add all of this bounce and reflection to the fact that people using the service are also moving, and getting 20 million points at pinball is a lot more of a sure thing than maintaining a good radio link. To understand the cellular idea completely, you have to know that phone company technology is currently completely different than you would guess. Phone calls are no longer connected together by wires that represent you and the person you're talking to. As soon as your analog voice reaches the phone system, it's digitized, like the music on a compact disc. From there on, the signals are handled as computer data. This has a lot of advantages. Phone calls as data are easier for computers to handle and can take advantage of all the things that computers do so well. Data can be compressed and sent in spurts along with other data, and then re-expanded to the correct length when it gets where it's going. As well, data switching can be done with standard computer parts. Analog audio parts are a lot more expensive, and the difference between $1 and 12 cents is important when you need millions of parts. This is the mobile telephone exchange. Even though it looks just like your basic big computer installation, it does some remarkable switching. For the computer fans in the audience, the microprocessor in the computer that supervises all this switching is the Motorola 68030. The little orange pipes at the back are fiber optic links. The data are us. The cellular system solves the radio pinball problem by playing along with it. A look at the logo of this company tells a lot of the story. The coverage area is divided into overlapping cells. The cells aren't necessarily this symmetrical. Downtown, they're smaller and more plentiful. Also, the cells are often split into 3 pie wedges. In all cases, though, the name of the game is to have as many overlapping cells as possible. In the city, the cell sites are on tall buildings. In more suburban areas, they have their own towers. This one's at the airport. The towers differ in appearance, but the small plastic shell-protected antennas and the microwave radio link to the main switching computer give the site away. Each site has a bunch of fancy radios, the microwave linking equipment, and a locate receiver. The locate receiver knows what cellular phones are within reach of the cell site by a unique code that each phone emits all the time it's switched on. This constant identification is key to the system, and as a bonus, it makes cellular phones useless to steal. When a cellular user places or receives a call, the mobile telephone exchange already knows where the phone is located. A unique pair of radio frequencies is assigned to that call. While you're in the range of a particular cell site, you're talking to one of these radios, and the rest of the connection is via the microwave link to the mobile exchange and into the normal phone system. The receiver portion of the radio uses diversity, 2 receivers fed from 2 different antennas. Whichever receiver has the strongest signal is the one that's used at that instant. During rush hour, these lights would be steady because no one is moving. At the moment, they're proof of the ping-pong game in progress. All the while you're using one cell site, the system is monitoring the locate receivers at adjacent cell sites, watching your received signal strength. When the signal falls below a preset threshold, the mobile telephone exchange decides which adjacent cell is the best to use and hands you off to the next cell. All of this happens without interruption. The mobile telephone exchange is always in complete control of the cell sites, the allocated radio frequencies, and the individual cellular phones. Cellular phone links can handle anything a normal phone connection can, including fax and computer modems. Since the handoff from cell to cell can cause an infinitesimal disruption in data flow, you should contact your cellular company about faxes and modems that can error correct for that. The future for cellular service is bright. The future, given the vagaries of educational network scheduling, is usually about 6 months ago. Phones are getting smaller though, and more powerful, and the next generation will likely be digital right from the handset. The best part is the fact that the charge per call keeps the carpet cleaners and vacuum cleaner salesmen from calling you. Hello? No, you idiot. I already have a cellular phone.